Welcome to Inside the Studio, KFIZ at 100. Conversations with some of the station's biggest and brightest all-time personalities. I'm your host, former KFIZ program director, Sean Kaiser. This episode looks at the radio rascal known as Joe Scheibinger. Joe's days as an entertainer started when he was merely 9 years old, playing the silver tone organ for Sears Roebuck around Christmas time. In high school and college, he wowed the crowds at Shakey's Pizza in Oshkosh, jamming on the piano or strumming the banjo. As for his foray into radio, it all started in the late 1990s, when he was asked to be a guest host on Ron Harvey's The Attic program.
I was down in Florida laying on the beach, and I got a call from Jerry St. John. Jerry says, Joe, why don't you come and sit in for Ron Harvey for a week? I said, I'm down in Florida buying cars. He says, well, yeah. And I had no ambition of getting in the radio. I thought, this might be fun. So I came up for a week and sat in with Jerry. And then they asked me once again to sit in for another week.
Joe soon learned he was filling in because Ron's health had taken a turn for the worse. Although despite his failing condition, Ron didn't lose his sense of humor.
I remember Ron saying, it was my idea to get you in to do my show because you always try to get somebody that's worse than you are. And I thought, well, thank you, Ron.
Soon after, Joe was handed the keys as the permanent 9 to 11 a.m. host, rebranding the show as Backstage Live, with a focus on interviewing big-name entertainers.
There happened to have been a magazine called RTIR that was sitting on my desk, and in it were all the big-name stars asking for interviews. I thought, well, this is a piece of cake. And I think our first interview was Joan Collins, of all people. And after that, Backstage Live took off.
Along with Joan Collins, Joe would go on to converse with many more celebrities.
Buddy Epson was a great interview. In fact, he liked it so much he asked to be on a couple more times. So we had him on 3 times. Phyllis Diller was a lot of fun. The guy that from Beverly Hillbillies, Jethro, he was a blast.
Joe's audience continued to grow, and when he promoted taking them on trips to Las Vegas, they signed up in droves. In all, they went to Sin City 14 times, the last of which will forever remain the final commercial flight out of Whitman Regional Airport in Oshkosh.
I took the microphone from the stewardess, and we were drinking Bloody Marys all the way to Vegas, and I was giving away KFIZ merchandise. Everybody got something. I wish I had a videotape of that airplane. We had one heck of a party.
Shortly after the terrorist attacks of September 11th, Joe organized a much more somber trip, one to New York City, to see Ground Zero and also lift the spirits of those in the Big Apple.
We're sitting here in Wisconsin. Let's see how many people we can get. And let's go to New York just to spend money. I want you guys to take a couple of grand out of your pocket. Let's help the New York people. And we all, as a group, went down the road and went into all the stores and bought a lot of stuff. We all ate together, and all the businessmen were coming up and going, God bless you for doing this.
Back on the air, Joe loved to have fun, and arguably had the most with a character known as UFO Bob, who had his own segment every Friday on Backstage Live. UFO Bob had free rein to rant and rave, although Joe would always cut Bob off before he got too radical. One time, Joe decided to play a prank on Bob by pretending a helicopter was in hot pursuit of the conspiracy theorist.
Bob says, what is that? I said, I don't know, let me look out the window. Oh, it's a black helicopter. Oh, all right. And he goes back to talking. And then we play the helicopter sound again. Oh, and then he started getting shook. I mean, you could tell he was getting shook.
Unfortunately, a vocal cord issue caused Joe to say goodbye to KFIZ.
I had so much fun in radio. If I would have been able to save my voice, I would have stayed. That was a precious 8 years of my life. And I look back on them all the time. And even after all these years, I can't come to Fond du Lac and sit in a restaurant while somebody coming up and saying, hey, I just listened to you on Backstage Live. Well, I've been off the air for almost 20 years. Oh, gee, I didn't know that.
20 years later, we still love and miss Joe's laugh. Even though he no longer sings, Joe Scheibinger still sits behind a piano 5 nights a week, doing what he loves, entertaining. Thanks for joining us, and keep listening for more episodes of Inside the Studio, KFIZ at 100.